It's Deep Focus. I'm your host, Mitch Goldman. First of all, a big thank you to you for being along on this podcast right now, and especially if you're one of the people who has recently started following us, or one of the people who has given us 5 stars or thumbs up or whatever your system allows it to do, or has just told somebody about this program. It means the world to us. We've been getting a lot of really good feedback lately, and we owe it all to you, and it makes all the difference in the world. That's how you pay for these things in our world. Just share some love. That's all we ask. This is part 2 of a program from November 27th, 2023. Anthony Michael Peterson, Tru Born, in the studio with me. And our theme, usually the theme is an artist, right? It's McCoy Tyner or it's Carlos Santana. Tonight the theme is finding the thread. What does that mean? Well, if we're going to get an answer, we're going to have to climb inside the vast mind of Tru Born. It contains multitudes, including you. Okay, here's part 2 of 3. Enjoy. Yeah, she don't let me have my bone as me. She don't let me have my bone as me. She'll never remember spending my dollars next week. Never. She'll never remember spending my dollars next week. Yeah, if you go to Bangor, tell my. If you go to Bangor, tell my boy, the times are waiting in Illinois, the times are waiting in Illinois. I've been in Texas and I've been in Arkansas. I've been in Texas, Arkansas, but I never had a good time till I got to Illinois. In Illinois. Never had a good time till I got to Illinois. And you go to Bangor, please tell my boy. You go down and Bangor, tell my boy, the times are waiting them in Illinois, in Illinois, in Illinois, in Illinois, in Illinois. You're listening to WKCR FM New York, WKCR HD, WKCR.org perhaps, or 89.9 FM here in New York City. The show is called Deep Focus. I'm your host, Mitch Goldman. I have the great pleasure of being here in the studio with Tru Born, a.k.a. a.k.a.
If my brother is listening right now, he is laughing his butt off. You've given him so much ammunition right now.
a.k.a.
Stop saying it. Stop saying it.
Anthony Michael Peterson. a.k.a. And this is, I'm being jocular here, but while that music was playing, we didn't talk a peep during that whole thing. I don't know about you. I was in the zone. I could feel you were in the zone too, even though we didn't talk at all right there.
Yeah, I was really listening to his threads, in my mind, thinking about Mississippi John Hurt, and where with Mississippi John Hurt you had this accompaniment that was very piano-like, and you listen to Skip James, and his thread is that I really believe his guitar work is that transition between the folk finger-picking style and lead guitar, because you listen to him and there's a lot more, it's even though he plays to me delicately, it's very aggressive. He's delicately aggressive, and when you listen to him, it's almost like there's another guitarist playing. So I was noticing that, and the fact that he was very much tied into his thread in terms of his dreams, where he obeyed. He was very obedient to his muse, and that's part of his. Anybody out there, don't come for me with this, but his prophetic gift, his gift of, and that means to not just receive a vision, but to bring it into the world, and to act upon it, and that's what anyone who's a songwriter or a writer, does. And it's very interesting because he, once again, the simplicity of his words could throw you off, and you could, just play it off. But he has a very it's almost academic the way he's approaching his own creativity. Like he said, he's, you might see me in a couple of weeks and I'll have 10 or 12 more. And it's like, really? There's some people who just do one album and they just live off that album for years and years and years and years. And that idea of constant improving is very important, and I find it very inspiring. Very inspiring.
His craft too. He's so deliberate the way he's shaping all the sounds with his fingers, with his breath, with his just his expression is that falsetto.
Yeah, it's beautiful. The falsetto blows me away every time I hear it. It's hypnotic to me, and it's you don't expect. Okay, when I hear Mississippi John Hurt, okay, that voice, he has a plaintive simplicity that's also unique to him. And then, Skip James comes in with this falsetto, and he's making the blues sound pretty. It's very pretty.
Yeah, the contrast between these two is immense to me. Mississippi John Hurt sounds, it's like Bach almost. It's composed. He's so settled in how he presents it, and Skip James is just pulling something out of.
Yeah, he's on the edge. He really is. And I'm going to go out on a limb and think that I would think that he's arranging while he's playing, because his timing is suggesting, improvisation. And sometimes when you do that, especially if you're singing and playing, instrument like the guitar, it changes your timing. And I don't want to say it's messed up. I just say that it changes your timing, because he's singing these 12-bar blues lyrics, but he's not following the 12-bar blues like chord form, but he's using that as his story, his story form, and it just works. And then you put that with the falsetto, you have this man with this beautiful voice talking about the woman done left him, how can she leave you? You sing so pretty, But yeah, Skip James.
Now I'm gonna go back to when I first started to hear you play, and you had a deep well. There's only 12 notes to play, but you seem to come up with a lot more than that. And
I had issues.
You played a lot. You played a lot of guitar. Oh. You were a young hotshot, and the music you were playing, the bands you were in, called for that kind of thing. And I wonder if you'll talk a little bit about the stuff that you've been doing, the solo acoustic stuff I see you doing on Instagram, I think is.
Oh yeah. That's kind of my healing of music. I got burnt out along the way, and when you start playing with famous people, that's a whole other thing. And I got burnt out by the hypocrisy of, feeling like, yeah, you're making this money, but at the same time, you're underneath someone, And sometimes you meet people who are, who could be kind, and some people who weren't. And, I just like the idea of having, someone playing on a porch and people gathered around and, there's a fire burning, So my version of that is to do this Sunday hang that I do on Instagram every Sunday. I haven't been doing it. I didn't do it the last 2 Sundays because I was fighting a little bit of an illness. But now I'm better. But I think that like listening to these cats it's like drinking, natural is drinking water to me. Listening to them and listening to, there's a phrase in fingerstyle guitar, we call it, in the blues, we call it rocking the bass, which comes from the ragtime piano tradition, when they had stride piano. And there's a way, every guitarist that's, uses this style of finger picking, they have their own way of rocking the bass, And where Mississippi John Hurt is very steady, then you have, Skip. And I don't like that cat calling him Skippy, by the way.
But he did. He called himself Skippy.
He called himself Skippy?
He did.
I don't care. I wouldn't. I just, just give him respect. Let him call himself Skippy. I mean, you got to call him Skippy. But, but no. I think, and then like you hear Skip play, and he's totally willing to interrupt that, that flow, to play his lead line, or to say a lyric and let the guitar finish it, to make, and next thing you know, you are putting that word in your mind, and that's genius. That's genius.
He so much craft going into this, and it seems simple, but it's not easy.
Right. It's easy to estimate.
One of our themes coming back around. It's easy to hurl a lot of notes out there, too, compared to telling your story, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'd be embarrassed to do it. I mean, I've seen cats, I watch guitar players all the time because I want to keep up with what's going on. And, cats that are younger than me and faster than me. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, wow, what? I'm like, how do you do that? But I'm not interested in that. I mean, I'd like to play my version of what that is. But, once again, can you pull on the thread and bring the magic, pull the rabbit out of the hat? Mm-hmm. Can you make people feel that you actually have a hat? That to me is the true, the magician within the musician,
My guest is Tru Born, Anthony Michael Peterson. And if people want to find these Sunday shows of yours and sit around the campfire, where do they find you?
Instagram is Tru Born, TRU, next word BORN. I've been doing them in the afternoons, Sunday afternoon, 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Pacific, and I'm leaving out what's mountain, about 2 hours back?
Yeah, 2 hours.
Okay, so that would be 2 o'clock mountain.
And if you're on another continent, well, get out your slide rule.
Yeah, get out.
And figure it out.
Send me a message. I'm in Oslo. Where are you?
But now I have to ask. Mm-hmm. When I met you, you were Anthony, and now you are Tru Born. What was the origin? How'd that?
Wow!
Tell me about that transformation.
Ooh. Well, that's actually kind of easy. It was around 2003, and I was just finishing my first CD, which you can find on trubornworldwide.com. And
TRUBORN.
well, actually, it was just Tru.
Oh, TRUE.
Just TRU.
Oh, just TRU.
Yeah, and there was a story about that. I've always received interest of people, from in this industry from my songs, but I'm not flashy. I'm definitely not like a young kid, and I'm not stupid. So I don't. People in the industry tend to shy away from people like me. And if you've been doing music for a while, you all know what I'm talking about. Where, now you get to a point in your life where you have all this stuff under your belt, and no one is interested because you know too much, right? So I began working on writing these songs, recording them, producing them myself, and all of a sudden I felt the name, Anthony Peterson. I had no problem with it, but there was something else that wanted to come out. And I remember I was auditioning for someone who I shall not name, who was managing a very famous group at the time. And he was he was a brother. And I went to his house and I was playing my songs for him. And, he put his head down and he's listening to my songs. And at one point I see him shaking his head back and forth. Like, no. And I stopped in the middle. I said, "What's wrong?" And he looked at me and he said, "Your songs, they're too personal." And I didn't what's the word? I wasn't offended. I understood that part of the industry, there are songs, thousands of songs cycled from group to group to group to group. And one group takes it, records it, maybe sells it, another group turns it down. So he's used to that mill. And which is, not too dissimilar to what was going on in the Brill building, mm-hmm. right? 50s, 60s. Mm-hmm. But, I was thinking to myself, if I was a young white artist, you wouldn't be telling me this. But because, and he likened a lot of what I was, my songs to, he felt like you remind me a lot of Tracy Chapman. And, and I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Does that mean I get money now? But I was thinking about it years later, and I was driving and I was working at a casino, the Cache Creek Casino in California. And I was like, well, it kind of hurt my feelings when I saw his head, shaking, and then when he tells me my songs are too personal. And then I realized that my songs were personal because I was telling my own truth. And then these letters, TRU, came into, right, I could still see them coming into my forehead. And I was like, that's it. That's who's being born right now. Mm-hmm. And that's, it's been that way ever since. a.k.a. Tru, as my brother would say. I know he's laughing right now.
Your brother, Mark Peterson.
Mm-hmm. Mark Peterson, bassist extraordinaire.
Yeah, and a past guest on Deep Focus.
Yeah.
The name of this show on WKCR. I'm your host, Mitch Goldman, here with Tru Born himself, Anthony Michael Peterson. If you're just joining us, this is a little different kind of Deep Focus. Our theme is finding the thread. We've been listening to some live music. We started with a set that also kind of unusual. Started with a little mini set from Mississippi John Hurt, and then a little mini set from Skip James. And we got some more surprises coming your way yet. We have one more piece from Skip James. I feel like I can't get enough of Skip James now. I love the Mississippi John Hurt.
Yeah, I love them all. I mean, he just takes me out.
There's some magic here. I got to say, should we go back in?
Yeah, let's go in.
All right, going in. So this is a recording, once again, if you're just joining us, this is a radio broadcast, October 1964. Mississippi John Hurt and Skip James doing a local show at a venue in or around Cambridge, Mass, and this radio host doing a little promo for it, invited them in, and thankfully for us, they played each playing a little set of music, solo acoustic, and I'm not going to say anything else. It's WKCR, music from Skip James.
Yeah, that's some blues. Oh no.
You like it?
I sure do. That was the one you said you wrote when you were catching the train there?
Yeah, I was at the old dilapidated depot down there.
No.
I had a big pocket hinge around my neck and a big old cowboy hat. It's like I was waiting for the Illinois train.
Well, now I'll tell you, there's one song that's a favorite of mine that you do that you didn't mention, and that's "I'm So Glad."
Yeah?
You still doing that song like you used to? Or?
Oh, I don't know what I do like I used to, but I can do it, and if it suits you, I'll be glad to, and if it's not, well, I'll do it the other way.
Well, let's hear you do it. I'm sure interested.
My heart's alone, and I've been grieving, and I've been crying for you. Yes, and I'm so glad, and I am glad. I'm glad, I'm glad. I'm so, yes, I'm so glad. I'm glad, I'm glad. I'm so tired. Yes, I'm tired, I'm tired. Why you fucking sick? Yes, my heart's so weary, and I've been grieving. Yes, and I've been crying for. And I am so tired, and I'm so tired. I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired.
Yeah, what more can you say when you hear something like that? I guess you know now why Skip James has always been called the greatest blues man in the world, and that he is.
I'm glad you like those kind of things. There is lots more that you haven't heard that I'd like for you to hear when you have leisure time, because it would be a help to me in the future, perhaps. And, of course, I don't use this, this tuning all the time.
Uh-huh.
There's lots I play in Spanish, and I play in cross note, and I play in natural. And then other than that, I play most any key on piano.
Well, Skippy, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. And if you folks want to hear more of Skip James, you hurry on down the Unicorn tonight, because he'll be there.
Thank you.
Well, again, I'm lamenting how little time we've got, and I see the time has just about run out. So I'll sign off by saying this has been Folkside. I'm Phil Spiro, and our guest tonight, we've been very privileged to have Mississippi John Hurt, and very privileged indeed to have Skip James with us. Music tonight has been live. We'll see you next week.
Thank a million.
That is remarkable.
Yeah.
What a treat.
I was just thinking when I was in the hallway, when I'm listening to it, listening to Skip James, I was like, intricacy is another word. Like, there's an intricate way that he's playing his chords and how he gets counterpoint, and it's all very simple, but you can hear it. It's not he's doing it by accident. It's very purposeful. So intricacy, that was another word that I was thinking about.
We are pulling that thread.
That's right. We're identifying some parts of the thread.
Finding a little knot here, a little twist there. And it's different every time. And yet, how long is that thread?
Well, keep in mind, the thread already exists. It's just up to us to see it and to find out the points on it which we can partake in, because it's a gift. And then we weave our own. That's what all art is supposed to be.
It's WKCR. The show's called Deep Focus. I'm your host, Mitch Goldman, and what a pleasure to be here with Tru Born, Anthony Michael Peterson. And we got a lot of music for you. So that was this radio broadcast we've been listening to from 1964. We heard Mississippi John Hurt, and then Skip James came on and played. Imagine being in the house for that show that night, October of 1964. And that was actually kind of a departure. So if you're a regular listener of the show, usually it's all about live unreleased recordings, which that was. Usually it's in front of an audience, and which this next one will be. And we're going to shift gears and focus on another singular artist, unlike anybody else, singing his own song. And maybe you want to tell the folks about who that is.
Oh, I can't tell anything about this man. This John Lee Hooker. I have no words for him. I cannot. He's like, okay. He's like the Miles Davis of blues, of the blues, guitar singers, songwriters, very enigmatic, yet straight to the point. And then he's cut out a lot of what has now become blues affectation. And I'm really not trying to put anyone down. I'm just saying that the one thing I liked about the blues, like in jazz, a lot of people play a lot of the same notes, the same licks. It takes a lot of proficiency to do so. But in the blues, every artist was already an original personality. They're already an individual, and that was the criteria for playing the blues. What you got? In jazz, it's like, can you play? And there's a very big difference. And if anybody wants to, come at me for it, come at me. I just feel like at this point, like I said, you listen to blues artists, each person is unique.
As B.B. King said, I know what you're thinking. You're afraid to say it, but it ain't what you play. It's the way that you play it.
Mm-hmm.
But there cannot be a musical genre that has become as ossified as blues has, I would think. I may not be the greatest student of it, but it feels like it kind of got set in stone somewhere 50 years ago, and there have been new voices, but the forms are...
I think that's natural. You see that in arts education. Time is the culprit of that, and our misunderstanding of the purpose of time, and not realizing that we also have an ability to undo the urgency of time. That goes. You'd have to go against a lot of socialization. So now we got the blues going, the thread going into the breaking away from the socialization. You know, you have this music, this entrancing music played by artists of color, you know, and the folk movement that was going big in the beginning of the 60s, mid 60s on. But you listen to these people who came out with amazing, gems, and people still don't know who these originators are, That's why I wanted to, Skip James, Mississippi John Hurt, and everyone knows
John Lee Hooker.
John Lee Hooker, except me. Everyone knows John Lee Hooker. Boom, 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 boom. So you hear him do that, but when you hear him by himself,
Well.
It's like breaded okra with lots of pepper.
He does it. He's got that thing, man. Mm-hmm. Sounds like he's coming up out of the earth.
Yeah, and he's mastered its use. He's mastered the use of the earth and water.
Should we go in?
Let's go in.
We're going in. Okay, so this is a recording of John Lee Hooker. It's a live recording made at the Reed College Community Center in Portland, Oregon, February 1970. Wow. And John Lee Hooker, not a kid by 1970. He's 52 years old. And it's just him and his guitar. And anything else need to be said?
Let him say it.
All right, we're handing it over.
I can't tell him. I'll make up stuff.
It is WKCR. The show is called Deep Focus. I'm your host, Mitch Goldman, and I'm here with Tru Born, also known as Anthony Michael Peterson.
a.k.a. Oh, my brother. He's not gonna ever stop saying it now. It's just, it's gonna be terrible.
Well, we'll just let him talk to John Lee Hooker. Mm-hmm. He'll settle it out. WKCR. Okay, I'm going to give you the whole thing. We're going to start in the beginning. It sounds kind of like this.
Roll right on along here. I know you must dig the blues, if you didn't, you wouldn't be here. Because you know what I do. The blues are nothing else, and later for the rest. Oh, yeah. I'm going to do a little thing. When you read my letter, you can tell that I've been trying. Sitting here writing this letter, babe, with tears running down my cheek. Sitting down, you writing this letter, babe, with tears running down my cheek. When you read this letter, babe, you can tell that I've been trying. I don't want no one to break the seal. I'm writing you this letter, babe. I don't want no one to break the seal. This letter goes to you, baby, and I don't want no one to break the seal. Never, baby, see your smiling face again. I may not never see your smiling face again. But most all of my trouble, baby, is all on account of you. Yeah. Thank you. All right. We're going right along here. It's all right. All right. It's all right. Big stars falling like drops of rain. My baby gone, been gone for a long time. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, 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 it's all right. Thank you. Thank you. Serve me right to supper house. Serve me right to be alone. Serve me right to supper. Serve me right to be alone, to be alone. Because my life I'm living and memories gone by. It served me right to supper. Serve me right to be alone. It served me right to supper. Serve me right to be alone, to be alone. Because my mind, langing on in memories gone by, in the days of memories of yesteryear. Every time I see another woman, she make me think of mine, think of mine. Mm-hmm. Make me think of mine, think of mine. And that's why when I see another woman, just can't keep them crying, keep them crying. My doctor put me on milk, cream, and alcohol. Oh, but he did. My doctor wrote me out a prescription for milk, cream, and alcohol. Because my nerve was so bad, I couldn't rest at all that night. That's why he put me on milk, cream, and alcohol. He put me on milk, cream, and alcohol. Oh, yeah. That was a good drink, a good prescription. Let's sock it to me. So your nerve is so bad, Johnny. Your nerve is so bad. That's the reason I'm putting you on milk, cream, and alcohol. To soothe your nerve. You can lay down and sleep at night. Milk, cream, and alcohol. Milk and cream and alcohol. Milk, cream, and alcohol. All right.
All right. We are in a whole other place now. We've evolved. We've moved. You're listening to WKCR. The show is called Deep Focus. I'm your host, Mitch Goldman. And we are finding the thread. It's finding us. My guest tonight is Anthony Michael Peterson, a.k.a., also known as, otherwise known as, in other circles, Tru Born. And, man, we're on a journey here. We started with Mississippi John Hurt, and I didn't think it could get any heavier than that. Then we were listening to Skip James, and he took us into a whole other place. And now John Lee Hooker, and it's getting dark, man. It's getting dark.
I wouldn't say it's getting dark. I wouldn't say that. You know, I would say that John Lee Hooker is mining the spiritual in what could be the dark, you know, and finding value in, like we were just trying to figure out milk, cream, and alcohol. I mean, he repeated it enough, you know, so it must have been a good recipe.
I think so.
You know, and the thread that I find with him that really connects him to Miles is both of them used silence as the pulse. You know, most people would say, well, what does that mean? Does it mean that they're quiet and going 1, 2, 3, 4? No, it doesn't mean that at all. It's being able to be one with space and the timing with emotional intent on a spontaneous level. And, you know, now we move from, with Skip James, like we've had, remember when I said that he's starting to break away from just, you know, maintaining, you know, rocking the bass to these intricate, very pianistic, you know, sounding fills, and then he just interrupts the whole thing to actually do a fill. So that was a great transition that you could see between him and Mississippi John Hurt. Now we have John Lee Hooker, who is using silence and call and response, or in classical music,
like an obligato.
Antecedent consequent. Whereas basically a question is asked musically and it's answered musically. And
both the two voices, both being John Lee Hooker, his voice and the guitar.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and here now he's just, you can almost imagine, I mean, I guess we'll listen to something with him with the band later. But when you hear him with the band, and I don't mean this as a cut, it's almost he doesn't fit with the band either, because to me, his spirit is too big. You know, it's almost as like, and I would love to talk to someone who has played with him to see, like, did he teach you how to play his music? Not just play his songs, but did he teach you how to play his music? Because I can't imagine as a sideman, with different people, as many people as I play with, I couldn't imagine playing with John Lee Hooker and just sliding right on in there.
Well, it's really interesting. This is recordings from 1970, and he's playing by himself. He usually did work with a band, and this other recording that we have, which we'll have to make some time for, which would be great to play it. It's they're killers. It's not his usual touring band though, but they're guys who absolutely should know their way around his music. But you're right; it's something, and it's just so out front here. He barely sings over. He's not doing conventional. I'm singing over the chords as I play them. He's deep in this conversation.
Well, it's different because especially after World War II, and then we had, the African Americans expanding out into the West, Northwest, the East, Midwest, anywhere they could get away from the South, basically. You have this sense of I wouldn't say urgency. It's like straight and to the point. And you listen to I was going to say Mississippi John Hurt, but that's not it. You listen to John Lee Hooker, and the difference is that in terms of lyrics, by the time the mid-40s had come around, modern African American R&B had started to become codified, whether it meant verse to the beginning of choruses, or say the 12-bar blues thing. Whereas with John Lee Hooker, his song form follows his text. In other words, his singing. That's why if you listen to to John Lee Hooker, you're not going to hear 12-bar blues, even though he's capable of doing this. It's because his song form is following his lyric form, his text, which goes way back even, into the church, when we dealt with a certain way of interpreting the gospel songs in what was called hymnlining. Okay, so in hymnlining, you had these elongated phrases. You had these, very focused ways of putting forth, these hymns. It's very different. And to me, that's what John Lee Hooker reminds me of. His song form follows the text rather than the text following the song form. And by text, I mean his lyrics. He's not sitting there playing like, you don't hear him sitting there going, okay, four beats of E, 4 beats of A, back to 2 bars of E, now 2 bars of A. He's not doing that. But it is following, the song form is all subordinate to the story, to the text, and that's a very deep tradition.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's pulling out that there's some terror or rage or some really primal, powerful emotions come through too. Mm-hmm. And it's I can't think of anybody else that.
I think it's all of it. To me, it's you can be mad that your woman left you, but I guarantee you, when it comes time to turn off the light and go to bed, you're going to be afraid to lay down that bed. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which will make you more mad, but now you're more afraid, right? So it's all of that. It's all of that, and that's part of the story. That's the gift that the blues brings to society. The ability to actually say something about your feelings, and it doesn't have to be like, let me articulate it so well that everyone understands me. He's like, I don't care if you understand me. Just give me my cream and alcohol. Milk, cream, and alcohol. That's all I care about. It'll be good. You know, whatever I see after I drink after that, it'll be just as real as when I turn the light off and she ain't there anyway. You know, and that's real. You know, and it's very hard because in our society today, we look at vulnerability as a weakness. But the blues is giving you strength and freedom through your, you know, by recognizing, you know, your pain and fear in your own experience. You know, you become your own hymnliner in life. You become your own, you know, preacher, so to speak. You know.
And if you don't know the music of John Lee Hooker, and you're listening to this and hopefully immersing yourself in what he's putting across, it might surprise you to know that some of these songs were nearly standards. They were covered many times. People had hits with songs that he had written. And this, I'd say the solo performance isn't necessarily highlighting the songwriting, but the songwriting is very powerful in there.
Mm-hmm. It is. I mean, he reminds me of, who's the guy that wrote down Hallelujah?
Leonard Cohen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, first time I heard him, you know, sing, I was like, really? You know, because it didn't sound stylish. It didn't sound, but he had gotten in touch once again with the essence of his emotion, you know, and the power of the word, the power of the written and spoken word, you know. Who was the poet that wrote Howl?
Allen Ginsberg.
Yeah, Allen Ginsberg says the three aesthetics of poetry was how the words look on the page, how they sound when you say them, and how they sound when they're heard, you know. And that concept of poetry, you know, that I miss that now in music. And it's all there in the blues. It's all there in the blues. Blues will tell you a really powerful, heart-wrenching story. And then right when you're sitting there going, like, damn, it's over.
Yeah.
It's over. So now you have to deal with that. Well, if you have to deal with that, imagine what the person who actually went through it had to deal with.
Right.
You know, it's like, is that person still alive? You know, and then you find out, yeah, he's doing fine. He's doing fine. He dealt with it. You know, so.
He made it this far. He made it far enough to come and sing it for you.
Mm-hmm.
In this May, you could tell me if this is absolutely besides the point, but you being the plectrist that you are, I'm going to ask, this is not a question for Tru Born, this is a question for Anthony Michael Peterson.
Let me pull him out. Yes. Yes, may I speak?
Equipment, gear, thoughts on crafting guitar sounds, anything to be said about that?
I'm really old school. Just get the best guitar you can find. The best that you can find that has resonance, like acoustically, even if it's a hollow body or a solid body. I mean, and it has to be something that pulls your the feeling of love out of you for the instrument. I mean, there's so much in equipment to be aware of that I've given up trying to, you know, my whole thing is I'll ask, you know, cats I know about, and then they'll tell me about it, or, you know, I have friends who teach me about settings, like how to really get the most out of my tone settings on my amp, because for me, it was just plug in, is it too much treble, too much bass? And they're like, look, man, just, you know, one friend of mine that got me, showed me how I could, you know, for instance, go to my treble pickup and roll my tone back and keep it in the treble position, and then find this wonderful equalization in my amp settings. And I had finally found that, you know, the sound that I had and tone that I wanted to have. And that was, you know, through this amp and It was a Black Star amp. Those guitar players who hear that word are either they say, "Yeah, I got that," or they're like, "Oh, really?" And so there was a Black Star amp, and I was playing through a Gibson Les Paul, and that was the sweetest that day that the Les Paul had sounded. But I mean, I think from that point of view, as far as gadgets.
Well, what about John Lee Hooker here? He's that sound that's emanating from him, that haunting feeling. Is that a particular instrument, or is that in his fingers, or what do you think his?
I haven't heard him. Having heard him play electrically and acoustically, he could play a K guitar from 1971, and it would sound what you hear, because he. I mean, if we were going to take it apart,
a K being a cheapo.
Well, yeah, K is actually the K was my first electric guitar. And
was that Sears? Was that or?
I don't know. I just know it said K.
Yeah, I remember those.
Probably they took the O off in the beginning, but no, he
didn't merit the O.
Yeah, no. John Lee Hooker has mastered one thing that most guitarists don't get, and that's dynamics. The ability, if you listen to him, the reason why he hits you is that he knows how to create, how to articulate, a certain thing and stress it, and he knows how to lay back. Like where most guitarists want you to hear every single thing that they play. And it sounds great, but it doesn't necessarily hit you in the gut. It makes you appreciate, hey, he's a great guitar player. But, I don't necessarily have to go back and revisit that moment. You listen to somebody like John Lee Hooker, you're like, what did he say? He said, milk, cream, and what? And you hear the way he articulates with his dynamics and his usage of silence. He's not trying to keep up with an invisible tempo. What he's trying to do is, can I really convey the coloring, the emotional coloring of this song or this experience? I mean, his imagery and storytelling is really great, and you listen to him and you might assume that he's talking about something he experienced, and he just might be talking about a story that's come out of him, which would, also break the thread back to Skip James. Skip James coming out of dreams, and playing what he received in dreams. So, thread moves back and forth.
November 27th, 2023. Tru Born, Anthony Michael Peterson, here on Deep Focus with me. I'm your host, Mitch Goldman. That was part 2 of 3 parts. And you're like me. You want to hear what's coming next. I'll see you over at part 3.